The Hoosiers just sent a shockwave through the Big Ten. A 63-10 demolition of number 9 Illinois. And now, Indiana has vaulted to number 11 in the AP Poll. Tonight, we'll break down how the offense clicked on all cylinders, how the defense shut down the Illini, and what this statement win means heading in. The Hoosiers just sent a shockwave through the Big Ten. A 63-10 demolition of number 9 Illinois. And now, Indiana has vaulted to number 11 in the AP Poll. Tonight, we'll break down how the offense clicked on all cylinders, how the defense shut down the Illini, and what this statement win means heading into a huge showdown with Iowa. Plus, we'll dive into the key stats, player performances, and we set the stage for the road ahead. Buckle up. The Hoosier Tailgate starts now.
And picked off up the sideline. Indiana, Asbury, walking them down. Woo! IU, America, they got a football team now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Hoosier Football Tailgate right here on thehoosier.com. I am the coach, Shannon Griffith, and tonight we're talking about that Indiana rolling number 9 Illinois 63-10 Saturday night in a jam-packed Memorial Stadium on the campus of Indiana University. Also in front of a national TV audience on Big Saturday Night on NBC, and also going to vault the Hoosiers into the number 11 spot in the AP poll. We're going to break it all down tonight. We're going to look at it from the stats, the Big Ten storylines, you name it. We're going to have it here. And I'll say this right out of the gate. I'm not sure Indiana can play another perfect game like they played Saturday after that performance on Saturday night. It was something that was truly amazing to see, and Indiana came ready to play all out against Illinois. You know, the biggest thing that Indiana was able to do, and we talked a little bit about this on Thursday, was they were able to play complementary football once again. Offense was clicking on all cylinders. Defense, of course, led the way with 7 sacks. And they only really had one true foul up in the secondary on the broken coverage that allowed Illinois to get their first touchdown of the game. And then, of course, what can you say? Special teams, again, has been on point for Indiana. This time, D'Angelo Pons blocking a punt, scooping it up, and score. Those right there are backbreakers for any team, irregardless your ranking. And Indiana has done something in the special teams for 4 straight weeks. And for the 4th straight week, Indiana has rushed the football for over 300 yards. And that in itself may be a record for Indiana, because I'm not so sure they've ever had 4 straight weeks where they've had their rushing attack eclipse 300 yards on the day. Over 567 yards of offense. So, again, just a crazy Saturday night in B-Town. And also from the defense perspective, they only gave up 2 yards rushing to Illinois. Just 2 yards the entire night. And it was something quite honestly, I wasn't anticipating all that because of the way the game kind of developed and things of that nature. But Indiana was ready to go out of the chute, and part of that was because of the crowd. I think the crowd had a big part in the atmosphere that Indiana was able to thrive off of. And even Coach Bielema from Illinois made comment about the atmosphere, that he had never seen anything like it there at Indiana before, and it was electrifying. And again, Indiana was able to play off of that atmosphere, and hopefully there may be another, Saturday night game in the future here as we continue down the road of this 2025 season. But again, I said that Indiana did move up to number 11 in the AP poll last night. Have not seen the coaches poll out yet. I do think they will probably, I wasn't going to guess they may eclipse the top 10. We'll have to wait and see. But again, the 19th team in the country, took Illinois out behind the woodshed and delivered a complete, what kicking on Saturday night. And so I do believe that Indiana, from a coach's pulse perspective, I may jump higher overall. They right now are at that inside, I guess you'd call it the college football playoff bracket mentality, being in the top 12 in the country. So that is a good sign. But they got a lot of, they got to get things rolling in a lot of different phases of the game. And, some of that will be, something that they'll need to work on this week. And even in Coach Sig's presser today, he was very adamant that while the game was a great game in that regard, they had some things that they needed to hone in on and get taken care of because of the way some things came out of, the ball game from that standpoint. So it's a game of inches, I guess you could say, in some respects. I mean, they had the one mess up on the coverage deal that gave up the one big touchdown pass, and that was it. That was it on the night. So Indiana, again, doing a great job. Defensively speaking, I thought they did they were attacking. They put a lot of pressure on Altmaier, which I thought was a critical aspect of that game. And I know that Indiana was getting great pressure with just a four-man defensive line that they had rolling in and out of that group. Mario Landino had a breakout game. Tyrese Tucker, breakout game. Isaiah Jones, breakout game. Those three guys were very active Saturday night, and it was good to see because it really made a difference for Indiana's defense with having those guys come in and do such a great thing there. So hopefully we'll get to there within a second and talk about Coach Cignetti's presser today. It's definitely something that I do think Indiana did have I think they had 59,000 in attendance on Saturday night, which in itself is a remarkable feat on a Saturday night in Bloomington. So again, that's a good sign to the fans, and the student body was excellent, and everything just fell into place for a magical night in Bloomington as Indiana come away with that. Nothing really said today by Sig in his pressers today. Nothing that was overly, earth shattering, I guess you could say in some respects. He didn't have too much to really discuss other than the fact that there are a lot of things from a coach's perspective, even in the biggest of blowouts, that you're going to find that you need to work on to get corrected because of what was put on tape Saturday night. And there were instances where, again, they're having some trouble in the back end, not getting lined up correctly. And they had the one blown coverage that led to that touchdown for Illinois. So there are some significant items that need to be addressed and corrected, because once you put that on tape, a good program is going to find ways to exploit it. And it's going to be one of those things that are a coach is always going to nitpick a win like that. And, as a coach, the worst thing for Indiana to do right now is think they have arrived. And I know that's not Coach Cignetti's way. And in some cases, I think he's harder on them on them after a game like that than a game that they may have lost in the past. I think he comes with some ammunition to the team meeting about talking about not being satisfied, finding ways to get better, and to lock and load this week to get ready to go to Iowa, which is a very difficult place to play. And Sig has never been there. He's never coached against an Iowa team, so he does not know the ins and outs of Kinniak Stadium. So that may be in some respects a good thing, but it's always been a tough place for any Big Ten team to go play. And it will be a tough place for Indiana to go play. I remember a couple of years Indiana was ranked and they went out there and got embarrassed. So it's going to be one of those things that Indiana is going to have to find themselves in a position that they're going to have to come back ready to go against Iowa. And Iowa has an extra day this week to prepare for Indiana because they played on Friday night. So it's going to be an environment that Indiana is going to have to prepare themselves for, because it will be loud and it will be pretty rambunctious, to say the least, out there in the great state of Iowa. And I do think that Indiana will probably be at least a 7-point favorite of that game. I haven't seen any lines yet. Just like Indiana started out a 4.5 against Illinois, and by the time kickoff on Saturday occurred, they were a 7-point favorite. It's like, what does Vegas know? Well, they must have known something because of what transpired in that ball game, and it didn't bode all that well for Illinois. And we talked about some of the weaknesses that Illinois displayed offensive line wise, because Duke had just as much of a field day against that Illinois offensive line. They turned the ball over 5 times, Duke did, and that's what led to their defeat. You can't turn the ball over. And Illinois was able to capitalize off of all those turnovers. So it's crazy from that standpoint of what Indiana was able to get accomplished in that game. And I think Sig, for the most part, was very pleased with how the team played every play at full speed, and there was no let up. And when they got opportunities to have big plays, whether it was defensive or offensively, they capitalized. So you can't say anything about that in that regard. One thing I do want to bring up before we get too far into the end of the show tonight, just remember Fanatics is a proud affiliate of the Hoosier Tailgate. Find that link in my bio page. You can go to Fanatics Game Gear store and pick up all your Indiana apparel. So we thank them for that. Also, if you're joining us tonight via YouTube, by all means, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell to let you know when we are going live. So you're well informed about that. In the seasons, we go on Monday and Thursday night, 7:30. And if you hit that bell, they'll let you know when we are live. And I do think you can even chime in from the chat in X now as well. So by all means, if you got a question that pertains to Saturday's game, by all means, but feel free, go ahead and ask that question. We'll try to get it up and answered for you as much as we can and go from there. But I already mentioned this stat there with Hoosiers rushing attack, fourth game, over 300 yards. Big game from Kalon Black with some big runs, one on the fourth down where Indiana had initially thought of punting it. Illinois had taken a timeout because they had the wrong unit out on the field. And in that time of timeout, Sig decided that he wanted to go for it. And then it wasn't too long after that Black broke off the big time run as well. So it's been very good for them. Roman Hemby, I thought, had a great game, setting the tone early on a couple of his runs. He caught the ball once out of the backfield on a check down that, again, Mendoza played flawlessly in some respects, and he was able to do a lot. Hemby was, as well as Black. And then how about Martin coming in late, getting his reps, and another game for him, over 100 yards and a couple of touchdowns. So Indiana right now is blessed with the number of backs that they have that they can throw out there in a rotation, and they all have something a little bit different to bring to the table on when they're in there. And Indiana will need all three of them as they continue their 3-game gauntlet here. This game up now is against Iowa this coming Saturday. 3:30 kickoff, 2:30 Iowa time, and it's on CBS. So it will be the national televised game from CBS, as that game, again, it's a big-time game for Indiana to come off this win and go right out and try to get a big road win at Iowa prior to going out to Oregon in a couple weeks. So we'll see what all happens around there. And then in and around the Big Ten, again, I think Michigan got back in their winning ways as well. USC continues to win. Their quarterback is playing really good right now. They beat Michigan State late on Saturday night. And outside of that, Ohio State and Penn State are both games that got big games this week, but Penn State's got the biggest because Oregon's coming to town. So that's going to be a huge game there in Nittany Valley because of Penn State. I believe that's a night game. I do think that's a night game there at Penn State. So it's probably going to be a whiteout, and that will be a tremendous game because whoever wins that game has got to feel that they have an inside track of being the one of the teams to play for the conference championship at the end of the year. And we've already kind of said that I kind of feel like Oregon not only is probably the best team in the Big Ten, but maybe the best team in the country the way they've played. So we'll see, because that game's going to say a lot about Oregon and Penn State coming this week. And Indiana will have them in a couple weeks out at Oregon, and will probably be a nationally televised game, especially if Indiana wins at Iowa this weekend. It will be the two undefeated teams again lining up across from each other out in Oregon in a couple weeks. So that one will be a crazy environment for the Hoosiers to play in as well. So we're going to take a break here real quick. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the scores in and around the Big Ten, as well as some of the statistic analysis that we like to do before we get into some video of the Hoosiers win on Saturday night. We'll be right back here on the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com right after this.
Huddle up. Football fans, tailgate season is here and nobody gets. You ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors? Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season 1 for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPNBY or text HOPNY 467369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT STEP, Arizona 1-800-32.
Welcome back to the Hoosier Football Tailgate right here on thehoosier.com. Going to take a look at some of the scores from this weekend in and around the Big Ten to see how things played out overall. In Iowa with a big win out at Rutgers on Friday night. You know, I think they had to come from behind a couple times in that ball game, and it was one of those things where they were able to get the win on the road. And playing at Rutgers is never easy, but they got a huge win there. Maryland continues to roll with their freshman quarterback, true freshman quarterback, 27-10 over Wisconsin, who's in a utter tailspin right now up in Madison. It doesn't look good for Coach Fickle up there, but they're behind the 8 ball with a lot of things, having Billy Edwards out of the lineup, and they're using their second string quarterback. Oregon pounds Oregon State in the Civil War, 41-7. Michigan goes to Nebraska, gets a huge win, 30-27 over their Huskers, using an aggressive ground attack for the better part of the day. And Dylan Raiola had a day, but unfortunately wasn't good enough as Michigan pulls off with a win, 30-27. In the last game that Sharon Moore will be suspended, so he'll be back this week. And then Notre Dame, they get a big win, their first of the year over Purdue, 56-30. Purdue pulled all out of the stops. They had a couple trick plays that I think were well executed, got some touchdowns off of it, and unfortunately for them, it was one of those things that had a rain delay or weather delay of over 2 hours, and that did not help them one bit. But they lost 56-30 up in South Bend. Of course, we know what the Hoosiers did with their pounding of Illinois, 63-10. Washington wins the Apple Cup, their rivalry game with Washington State, 59-24. And then USC caps things off at night with their 45-31 win over Michigan State in a ball game that was relatively tight for the most part of it. You know, Michigan State's a team that everybody's going to have to keep an eye on because I think they're getting better. They may not be there quite yet, but that wouldn't be a bit surprised if they don't sneak up on somebody and knock them off because of that Childs, the quarterback. He's pretty darn good as well. So, yeah, they still have a team, right? You know, they appointed an interim head coach out there in Westwood, and Tino is still the offensive coordinator. Nothing's going to change there, but they're actively looking to replace the head man out at Illinois, as well as some other openings that have occurred because of the season with some of these firings that took place here a couple weeks ago. Last time we talked about Indiana and with the game against Illinois, we had talked about some of the statistical analysis stuff that we were doing. And it was one of those things that we provided the offense, defense, and stats for both teams to lay out how likely these two teams were kind of, in some respects, equally matched up against each other. And you can see by this stats here that did not that never came to fruition because of what Indiana was able to do on Saturday night. But again, Illinois' offense was a pretty good offense coming into this game and holding them to 10 points when they've been averaging something like 50 plus, I believe, throughout the first 3 weeks, and holding them to 10 was truly remarkable, and holding them to 2 yards rushing. Like I said, that's been a long time since I've seen a number like that in a big time college game. It just tells you the utter dominance that Indiana had up front and the way they attacked it. Indiana, 312 yards rushing, 267 through the air for Mendoza, 579. And one of the things we did talk about was third down conversions. And you can see right there who won that ball game. Indiana was 8 of 11, 73%, 1 of 10 for Illinois. They were lining up in 3rd and 7 and further for the better part of the night. Indiana, because of their efficiency on 1st and 2nd down, were lining up at 3rd and 3 or less a multitude of times. And they were able to convert those rather easily on a Saturday night. When we go to the red zone, Indiana, 5 of 5. Here's a team that struggled against Old Dominion when they got down there week 1. And that led to Indiana's, win that could have been more lopsided than it showed on the score paper because of their ineffectiveness in the red zone. So the last couple of weeks, they've been pretty much red hot. And a couple of the throws that Mendoza made, one to EJ Williams and the other one to Surratt, man, oh man, those were big time throws that you see and you'll see in the NFL, quite frankly. And then the defense, of course, the touchdown that they gave up was a big play. So they Illinois never ever threatened the red zone of Indiana. Even before the half, that field goal kick was like 46 yards, if I'm not mistaken. But they were never in a position to threaten the red zone the entire game. That's just a tremendous, tremendous game put out there by Coach Haynes and that defense, while Indiana scored 35 points because they were 5 of 5 inside the 20. 100%. They won the turnover margin, a +1 with 1 interception. Again, Indiana, no turnovers on the night. And then points off of turnovers because there were no points off of turnovers this week by either team. But you can see there by the overall statistical analysis of this ball game, not only did Indiana dominate on the scoreboard, but they dominated on the stat sheet as well. And I'm still kind of blown away by how good Indiana played and how well they were ready to go on Saturday night. I would not have thought in a million years that they would blow this team out of the water 63-10. Honestly, I'm as guilty as everyone out there thinking this was going to be a closer ball game than maybe what the spread indicated, and a 4-quarter game. And all likelihood, this game was over at halftime. And It just Indiana out physicaled them at the point of attack, out in space. Illinois lost like 3 players on the night due to, Indiana's physicality, and just pounded, out of Illinois. And I know on Saturday morning on the ESPN game day, where they are picking the winners of the day, everybody on their panel, with the exception of Pat McAfee, had picked Illinois to win over Indiana, with a couple even making comments about Illinois being the more physical team. And I got a feeling that was communicated pretty loud to Indiana's players throughout the day about some of the comments that were made on ESPN's game day. But it's just a unbelievable game by those kids up front on both sides of the ball. And yeah, John, they may be as good as anybody in the country when it comes to the offense and defensive lines. We'll see. I mean, we're going to see here this week, and then of course, definitely when they go out to Oregon. But if they can continue to control the line of scrimmage like they have, they will match up with anyone and everyone in that regard. When it comes to all that standpoint. Let's look at this. Some top players of the game on Saturday. Again, Mendoza with you can't say enough about this kid. 21 of 23. This kid, 21 of 23, nearly perfect. Another game where he completes over 90% of my I think I'm back. I hope that I'm back. I don't know what happened there, but everything froze up and it said something about the broadcast had ended. So I hope that I'm back up. Everybody give me a thumbs up or say, yep, you're back. So I know that we're rocking and rolling. That's great, Scott. I hope we had a great time. That in itself is a great game to have your boy with you because of the way that game turned out, because of what Indiana was able to do. That's for sure. But I'm glad that I'm back in live here because, like I said, I don't know what happened there, but it was really weird for a second. So glad we're back talking about Fernando Mendoza. Again, 21, 23, 91% completion rate, 5 touchdown passes, QBR of 260. He has to be in the Heisman discussion now. He's had 3 weeks of, I think he's maybe thrown 3 incompletions over the last 2 weeks. That is just unheard of. And, his accuracy again on Saturday was, just crazy good. And you can tell he's comfortable in the offense now. He's comfortable with Coach Shanahan's play calling and how he's getting coached, and his confidence level is soaring. And which is a good sign for Indiana because this kid has all the potential in the world in that regard. I don't think many people, Scott, felt they never would see the stadium to that extent on Saturday. But again, that happened a couple times last year, and it's continuing now with this team. Elijah Surratt, what can you say about him? Waffle House is always open. That kid, too, is a player. 9 receptions, 92 yards, 10.2, 2 TDs. He had a long pass to 21. He had 10 targets, and I talked about this on what I thought Indiana had to do in their play calling. We're going to go over that in a second, but there had to be design play calls where you're saying, I'm going to try to get the ball to Elijah. I'm going to try to get the ball to Cooper. I'm going to try to get the ball to EJ. And I thought for the most part, they did that on Saturday. And because these kids are too good not to have targets during the game, because they are what makes teams around them fear Indiana's passing game, because Illinois played man for the better part of the game. Indiana just undressed them at the line of scrimmage 9 out of 10 times. And, they also blocked pretty well for the most night. But those two guys on offense were pretty darn good. Isaiah Jones, again, he was a major impact on the game. 2 of the sacks he got were early. He's stepped in and done some great things. Him and Hardy both have been dynamite alongside Aiden Fisher. But this kid, I love his motor. I love the way he plays. I think he's a guy that, he's going to be a great linebacker at Indiana to step into that role in another year. Just tremendous. Landino, again, he breakout game as far as I'm concerned. 2 sacks, 2 TFLs. He was very present and noticeable along the defensive line as they dominated Illinois' offensive line. They were just getting great push at the point of attack. Illinois' offensive line for the most of the night was in Altmaier's lap. I mean, that kid didn't have a prayer on Saturday. And that was due to the fact that the Indiana defensive line was getting tremendous push up the field. And he was part of that, as was Tyreek Tucker in that regard. But I thought those were some of the standout, guys from Saturday night. I could have sat up there and talked about more than just these guys, because I think you got to give the offensive line a ton of credit for what they've done over the last three to 4 weeks. They're just playing at a high level. Getting Coogan as you're all, in the offseason through the portal was a huge get for the offensive line. Once they got him, it was, you knew they were in good hands from that point of view, leadership, because of what he brings to the table and what they put on his plate to run the show for the offensive line. And he made a couple huge blocks that sprung guys for big plays. So, not to not mention more than just some of those guys is probably not smart, because I could have named about 5 or 6 other guys. D'Angelo Pons had a heck of a ball game. He blocks a punt, he scoops and scores. But, D'Angelo, you kind of expect that out of him because he's the best there is in the Big Ten. That kid is phenomenal. And the only thing I wish is that you could take about 10 of him and have him on your team, because he's that special of a player. And your guys are being treated to some great players in this Indiana football team that are going to be in the NFL. And D'Angelo will be one of those guys. I mean, that kid's special. And he has made play after play over the last 2 years, and even his time at JMU. So everybody participated in that game with some great effort and things of that nature. So good to see all that. And then let's see here. Okay, yeah, this is where we left on Thursday night, talking about kind of what it was going to take for Indiana to win a ball game like this. And they were able to do it in spades Saturday night, of what we kind of talked about in terms of what Indiana needed to do to win this game, especially on offense and defense. And I don't think you can say that this wasn't accomplished, because they did it all on Saturday and did it well from that standpoint. And they just lived up to this. I said on offense, they had to have a balanced attack. They had efficiency with run and pass. I think they were close to that 50-50 balance, as we talked about, 60-40. I thought Shanahan's play calling was aggressive at the appropriate times of the game. I do believe he tried to, establish the run like they have in the last few weeks. I think that was key in this ball game, and he did that. He had the targeted plays like I discussed for that ball game because of what we had talked about, having plays for Surratt, having plays for EJ or Hemby or things like that. I do think he met the challenge of making sure that he was able to spread the ball around on a consistent basis with all those players. And I think it paid huge dividends by what they were able to do out in space, especially taking advantage of one-on-one. It was just a really good game that he had done in that regard as it pertained to Indiana coming out with that victory on Saturday. Let's see here. I got to pick up my defensive ones here. There we go. And then defensive side of the ball, we talked about winning first down. I don't think there's any question that Indiana's defense dominated first down against Illinois. They very seldom got an inch on first down. They held them to 2 yards. So that was well under the 100-yard. I think they were attacking. I do think they were aggressive. They won the money down because they put Illinois in a situation they had to become one-dimensional. They got the one turnover, and they did force Illinois to be one-dimensional because of the score got so lopsided, and that defense having 7 sacks on the night. So you can see how Indiana thoroughly dominated this game by what the coaches were able to put together in a plan, how they communicated that all week so the kids were all on the same page. So when that whistle blew on Saturday night, there was no body out on that field that was on a different page than what the coaches were. I did say that, yes, there are some things that they have to clean up on defense with some of the coverage mistakes in terms of alignments and making sure they understand the coverage call, because the one touchdown they showed cover 1, which is a man-free concept, but they were bailing to 3. And so D'Angelo was expecting Farrell to be on the post guy, and he got his eyes and jumped the crosser, and that's when the ball went right over his head for a touchdown. So there's some things there that have to be, worked on and get better at in terms, and then of course the alignment, because like I said, you put that on tape, there's coaches out there that are going to test you to make sure you've corrected it. And that's why you've got to make sure that you have corrected those mistakes on both sides of the ball. So like some of the first protection mistake that Fernando got sacked on in that first drive, I believe that was the left guard's responsibility on that play. And he got locked in on the one technique with Coogan and didn't come off on the linebacker that blitzed the B gap. So again, a game like that, it's easy when you lose and you can say, well, what they know how to fix. And it's a multitude of things. And even when you win a game like this as a coach, your mindset, and you watch a game objectively, and you get the kids to watch the game objectively and point out areas where maybe they got lucky because Illinois didn't exploit it, or, they get on the same page of what happened in the communication process that led to this breakdown. Those are the things that you've got to hone in on as a coach and as a group, and make sure that you get it addressed. And I know that Sig is going to do that. And like I said, I think he's sometimes harder on this team when they win games like that than if they would have lost a game at another point in time. He's one of those guys that at times when they're riding high, he kind of, knocks them down a notch or two and talks about the rat poison that they're reading too much or getting too many pats on the back from Saturday's game. And if they're not careful, they'll get their drawers blown off at Iowa. And he does a great job. And that all comes from his time under Saban at Alabama and how Saban handled these type of situations. And he was masterful at that at Alabama. There's no question about that, even though he was one of those Jake Legs that made that comment about Indiana's lack of physicality, or Illinois was going to be the more physical team on Saturday. And like I said, the only person that picked Indiana was Pat McAfee, so he gets bragging rights for the week. Let's head over to the coach's room here, and let's show some video here. Let me get my thing set up and ready to roll and get us on that page here. Okay. As we get rolling here with this game. Again, this is after that timeout. Indiana's on a 4th and 1 here. They decided that they were going to punt. Illinois calls timeout, and they put Kalon Black in, and they run basically a inside zone A-gap buster, and Black picked up the much needed yardage for first down. So they come right back on 1st and 10, and they're going to target my man here, Mr. Cooper, on his pass route running abilities. As you see here, that he runs a great route, RPO type of game. Illinois, as you see here, is rolling, and we talked about this. They're showing a cover 2 shell. But for the quarterback, he knows right now it's pretty much man, because he's looking at him, and he's really looking at him. Okay. And this guy's already creeping down, I should say. This safety's creeping down in this manner. And so Fernando already knows that what he's got coming. Oh, come on. It doesn't like me tonight. Don't know why, but it doesn't like me tonight for some reason. Let's go ahead and get that rebooted the way it did it there. So we'll see if we can get this rebooted. But that guy was coming downhill, and we're going to get back to our video here. Whoops. Sorry that happened. Let's show. No, that wasn't it either. Where is that? Oh, maybe it was. Okay. Let's see. I think that's what I need. All right. But anyway, we'll come back to that later. But here's the play that D'Angelo does a heck of a job on the punt. Illinois makes a mistake here. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I think because Indiana didn't have all 11 players on the field, or at least that's what they seem to say, but they basically screwed up their count and turned D'Angelo loose. And he does a great job here, aim point, taking it right off the punter's foot and getting the scoop and score. And that's, that just sent the crowd into a frenzy, and it sent this team on a rocket ship to 63 points. But you can see here, this is just perfect by him. He gets to the point, his aim point is like 7 inches in front of that punter, so he's not going to run into him. He shoots his hands, and that's just, I mean, right there, technique-wise, you can't pick anything apart about that one. Really good. Here's the touchdown pass, and you can see what Indiana does here. Indiana is in kind of a three-deep look right now. And D'Angelo's disguising as man, but you're going to see him bail there. So Farrell is coming here into the middle third. This guy's going to run a big, deep crossing route. So this is a route you throw to exploit either cover 1 or cover 3. And what happens is D'Angelo's in a perfect position to stop and pick up this crosser if Farrell keeps going. Well, he doesn't, and he jumps on the crossing route, see him there, and it's over. And he kind of hung out D'Angelo on the coverage-wise in that one, and it was 6 points. All right, here is that play that we already looked at. This is after that big play to Cooper. They run the quick screen outside here. What a job by E.J. Williams. Watch this kid block this guy. Number one, I don't think he even wanted any part of this because that is just piss poor effort. Now, they could say that's holding on E.J., but I think he did a heck of a job, and Omar does a great job of getting in the end zone there. Here's a 2nd and 7 again. Indiana efficient on first down. They're bringing the heat, and great job. They just take everything off here. Kamara's doing a great job, and look at the tackle. I mean, this kid was getting held and everything the entire night, and I know there's some people wondering why he's not getting the number of sacks that he's accustomed to last year. But when you're a named commodity now, remember, he was a kid last year that came on the scene nobody really knew about. And so there was nobody on the outlook for him. Well, he's got a name for himself now. So they're going to block him, hold him, bite him, whatever. And that's fine because it's going to open the door for other people. But, you know, he gets held so many times. This is Isaiah Jones on their blitz, doing a great job there, getting by the line, running back, and picking up his first sack of the night. And the kid plays with a lot of emotion. Here's the touchdown to EJ. Watch this throw. And this is just a kind of a what we call skinny post or slant route. Good red zone route. Again, they're kind of showing that shell look, but they know it's man, and this guy's probably going to be like a robber. And watch the throw that Mendoza puts on here. This is just crazy. And just right where only EJ was going to be able to get it, and that's how he threw it to him. And again, you'll see it from this angle. You'll see that safety there, and he knows right now who he's going to. Why this guy's Brady's coming through here, and he's occupying too. He knows he's coming right to EJ right now. And he just waits for that clear, and then he puts it in a spot nobody else can get but EJ. That's just a hell of a throw. That's an NFL caliber throw. And again, this was just a tremendous call by Coach Shanahan. If you watch the game on Saturday, and I was saying this watching it, Illinois, on any time they had 2nd and long, they were pressuring Indiana. Or if they had 1st and long, they're going to pressure them. So this is the time it's 1st and 15. Indiana just took a procedure penalty, which they had 2 on the night. And he calls a tight end middle screen. And this is a great play. Hemby's going to come out here and be a decoy. So he looks like the guy they're going to throw it to. Nowakowski just kind of settles, and then he kind of pops up here, and these linemen kind of let everybody through, and then they're the cavalry leading the charge. Boom. I mean, after this, there's nobody left Coogan and Evans take care of their guys, and just a big time call at the right time by Coach Shanahan, and very well executed by Indiana. Here's a 3rd and 5. Look at the push here. This is the one I wanted to show. This is what I mean by the push they're getting. Indiana's bringing a 6-man blitz here, taking advantage of an open set, but they're getting great push on the quarterback, and he doesn't have a shot, and you know what. And Whalen and Landino get the sack there. Just a great play overall. This was the play that I think broke the back of Illinois, even though it was already 35-10. First drive of the second half, Indiana comes out. It's 3rd and 2. Watch this kid's block on this run by Keelan Black, because this is just inside zone. Just enough to keep number 7 off of him. They're in man coverage, so he's theoretically blocking too because the corner's following him. And then Black just, he was 88 out the gate, and it was over with. And then again, 42-10, 3rd and 7, no chance. This kid he didn't have a prayer all night. Again, great push. They get him they know that they're passing it, and Indiana just pins their ears back and just rips it. And Landino and Tyrese Tucker again. So a tremendous job by Indiana on Saturday is all I can tell you. The kids, they played well. The coaches called the game well. It was just a thorough ass whooping that Indiana put on Illinois. But now their focus has to go to an Iowa team that beat Rutgers on the road. Their quarterback has won a lot of games at the FCS level. He was at South Dakota State, won a national title. He's a guy that can throw it, and he's a guy that they will do quarterback design runs with. So, he's a big body kid. So Indiana will have another tough test this week as they head to Iowa on Saturday afternoon at 3:30 on CBS. Remember, we're back Thursday, and I'm going to break it down for you against the Hawkeyes and what Indiana will need to do on this road test of the year. Their first trip on the road away from Bloomington and Memorial Stadium. And we'll tell you what they're going to have to do to get the win up in Iowa City come Saturday. Thank you for being with us here this evening. I hope you found this live session to your liking. If this was your first time here, we invite you to come back and join us on Thursday night at 7:30. Till then, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. This has been the Hoosier Tailgate right here on thehoosier.com. Good night, everybody.